Reverse hits. A great move in theory, and apparently when put to use as well. Why just accept a body check when you can instead dish out a little extra to the person who felt like hitting you? Reverse hits aren't a new thing whatsoever either. Puck carriers with their heads up have been laying a little extra shoulder into the person trying to knock them off the puck literally forever. And though it's been around as long as the NHL has, it usually wasn't some replay-worthy play. When they were, it was how you might think a reverse hit would or should be. A puck carrier sees a hit coming and gives the player attempting the hit a cold shoulder back instead of just absorbing their body check. That kind of reverse hitting has been relatively popular forever. However, the kind we're seeing more and more frequently nowadays has not. Today's reverse hits have become a little less about the puck carrier protecting themselves from the defense, both players obviously fully aware of the impending impact, and a little more about puck carriers giving unsuspecting defenders a space-creating whatever happens shot with their back or back of their shoulders in sort of blindside break check fashion. When a puck carrier has their back to the defender, they arbitrarily stop, jolt their shoulder backwards, and plant it into the unsuspecting defender with force. It's not just preparing for a hit and prepared too fast kind of thing. Puck carriers know exactly what they're doing, fully aware that it'll catch defenders off guard.
Filip Forsberg decided he would be the hitter instead of the hittee.
As not only does it often end in puck carriers maintaining possession, but the players on the receiving end of reverse hits are often taken completely out of the play. And despite that they're hitting someone who doesn't have the puck, something we know as an interference penalty, reverse hits are not called penalties. And it seems like some of those Pavel Datsyuk hits really started this modern way of reverse hitting.
Back here, he's got to get so close to him and fools him. He sucked him in and then drilled him with a shoulder right in the chest.
Little Lady Byng winner Pavel Datsyuk defending himself against big bad Shea Weber. And the sentiment at the time was pretty much, that was sweet. With a little voice in the back of your mind saying, was that legal? But everyone is being complimentary and there's no penalty, so meh, nice play.
I love it, it's great.
And though not as high profile, this play set even more of a precedent than the Weber one. And since players are faster and more powerful than ever, yet seemingly still aren't as skeptical of these reverse hits as you might assume, reverse hits result in injuries all the time. And since these sort of blindside reverse hits are as prevalent as they are and have caused as many injuries as they have, yet aren't really defined in the rulebook, you would not only think the league would address it, but franchise employees and players as well. These reverse hits often happen before the defender's body language even hints that they're contemplating laying a hit or making body contact whatsoever. They look like they aren't bracing for contact because why should they be? They seem to think that if they get hit, it would be a penalty. So why has no one warned them that it could happen without penalty?
It was rear end to face as Hischier was coming in.
Or are the players just simply never going to be able to defend themselves from these even if they're fully aware? So what should be done here? Should anything be done here? It's worth a thought, as apparently the NHL is now discussing the state of reverse hitting and whether or not changes need to be made. It's a tricky problem with nearly impossible to define middle ground. How do we prevent potentially career-ending injuries from reverse hits while keeping the integrity of the sport's body-checking aspect in place? I don't think that's something a rule can fix unless you want to have the referees making more judgment calls. Is the difference between a reverse hit and defending yourself from a hit something we'd really like referees defining? Do we really want calls made based on what someone's definition of bracing for a hit too much is?
Inside position, leverage within the rules.
Whether the defender really seemed like they were going to make body contact or not sounds dicey.
You see the reverse hit there by Nathan MacKinnon.
You think arbitrary calls are bad now? It would be very hard to draw a consistent line labeling a reverse hit a clean play, interference, or roughing, or whatever. This hit was deemed an interference penalty. This was because he had not touched the puck, which makes sense. But if he just taps the puck and then does the exact same thing, it's a legal play. Both demolished a player without the puck. One might have just grazed it before doing so. Naturally, there is some confusion here. Lots of people ask why this isn't interference and are never given a coherent answer. You'll hear Ray Ferraro question why these aren't interference penalties all the time. Well, hasn't a precedent sort of already been set by the league since the early Pavel Datsyuk days at least? For the most part, the way it's being called right now is you're fair game to be hit by someone who has touched the puck at least once within the last couple seconds if you were anywhere near them, if they stay within the basic already outlined rules when reverse hitting you. And like every other penalty, of course there will be inconsistent calls. The main argument for not changing ruling on these type of reverse hits would be for puck carriers to always have an option to defend themselves against hits from behind, something that happens relatively often and is already arbitrarily called. But penalties have to be called when the basic, already in place rules are broken. Something that typically comes with these reverse hits are players leaving their feet, which under the rules, to the mass confusion of some recently, is a charging penalty.
How can you get charging when you're standing still.
I mean, jumping or traveling a distance via jumping in any manner, not only left or right, but upwards, a way you usually move when you jump into a hit, is far more clearly defined as charging in the old ambiguous rulebook than most of the charging calls we've ever seen in this league. Quite frankly, everything other than the jumping part in the charging rule is absolutely absurd and technically nullifies body contact, so I think we need some updates regardless. And yeah, there were people in the comments section mentioning charging could have been called on Dahlin for that questionable hit on Hischier over a year ago. It's not exactly news, but you can't really blame anyone for not knowing this. I mean, the announcers didn't know. Of course, the flabbergasting part is that a standstill play was deemed charging, but it is technically in the rules. So, since charging is such a vague, dumb penalty that exists solely to justify interpretation from referees, should the league just add a jumping penalty or toss jumping in the ever-ambiguous roughing category? You could still call that a penalty without having to compare it to whatever Jacob Trouba is doing or by having to define it as the same rule you do some of those Raffi Torres hits. For the record, what's one of the things Brendan Shanahan listed when he was announcing the Raffi Torres suspension for his hit on Marian Hossa?
A minor or major penalty shall be imposed on a player who skates or jumps into or charges an opponent in any manner.
For me, a big part of these hits remaining clean reverse hits is if a player's feet stay down. I feel like a lot of the ones you see from Moritz Seider are what you would call clean reverse hits. On impact, he has at least a foot down, often both down, shoulders down, elbows down, and he's just getting the better of the person. I say on impact because there's a big difference between a play where a player is made to leave their feet after a hit rather than just leaping into a random direction with his entire body weight flying through the air before the hit. But yeah, as far as what's considered clean reverse hits go, these are top level players. These plays are happening so much because they've evolved to gain top level legal advantages. I'm guessing these will continue and defenders will continue to not see them coming. But can the frequency be reduced again? Maybe the severity of the impact? Is it really as simple as everyone being constantly aware that these are legal plays? And regardless of the league sending out a simple warning of their own, or whether or not any of us think these plays are penalties, it's currently pretty hard to predict the future of reverse hits. And once you start stretching the limits and looking for loopholes, all that confusion comes back in. Down to the millisecond, how much time has to pass after you've touched the puck? Exactly how unsuspecting can a player who gets hit be? What happens if you jump down? Is a headshot not a headshot if it's a reverse hit? What even is interference then? What's defending yourself?
What is violence, anyway?
As it stands, with a little more awareness from defending players, we might see less reverse hits, but at the same time, with a little more awareness from attacking players, we might see more. But the way the rules currently stand and are called, the bare minimum we should expect is for both the league and for individual franchises to let it be known that anytime anyone has the puck, they can absolutely destroy you without taking a penalty, so you better be prepared to take reverse hits.
Bouncing puck goes to the corner. Koivu, throws a nasty shot. Here's Koivu moving in. Koivu centers. Savaguchi shoots. He scores!